Okay, hello everybody. Welcome to Promo Perspectives. I'm Nicole Cook. I'm the Senior Brand Marketing Manager here at Sage, and I am joined today by David and Scott, who are board members from PromoCares, which is an organization that inspires, educates, and champions social and environmental responsibility across the promotional products industry. Yes, I read that because you wrote it so well, and I need to just make sure I get it across as well as it should. So, David and Scott, I'm really excited to have you both on today to talk a little bit about PromoCares and then your Water4Good initiative.
Awesome.
Excited to be here.
Yes, totally stoked to be here. Thanks for having us, Nicole.
Of course. All right. Well, we can jump right into it. So, first, I want to talk about PromoCares as an organization itself. Would love to hear about its mission and what drives your board's commitment.
Well, Dave, since you were one of the founding members or there before me, why don't you go ahead and just dive right in the pool?
Man, we're going way back in time now. Yeah, it's funny. It started out, it's hard to believe now that I think back upon it, but I didn't know Danny Rosen all that well at the time. And I'm involved in putting on a big charity event in Kansas City. He was posting about a big charity event he puts on down in Raleigh, North Carolina. And I just remember sending him a note and then wound up going to his event in North Carolina. And also at the time, Bill Petrie was there, and Roger Burnett was there, and a couple other folks. And we sat down and had lunch one day and talked about what we could do to help spearhead understanding, knowledge, and action related to everything from responsible sourcing to environmental responsibility, and you name it. And that was the birth of PromoCare, so to speak, a very loosely organized organization that, as you can see with the addition of Scott and a handful of others, has grown into kind of a core central board, so to speak, very unofficial board, and then a number of different committees, really just with the idea that we can help spearhead that type of understanding in the industry. And that's where it all started.
Yeah, Nicole, I came from, Danny, I've known Danny for a good number of years as a customer and became a good friend. And in 2018-19, we became a certified B Corp. We started our relationship with Planet Water back at that time, right after Hurricane Maria. Our first deployment was in Puerto Rico. And anyway, Danny and I were having a lot of conversations about social purpose, revenue-driven social purpose, and then environmental stewardship. And he pulled me into it, and I had the same question that you just asked, and that was, what is PromoCares? And really, what I found is that it's a megaphone for what's happening in the industry that's right, and that's for good reason, good cause, and it's about consciousness. PromoCares, elevates and really tries to bring consciousness in terms of being revenue driven, but also there's so much more that we as leaders or owners or whoever in the industry can participate in to help benefit others.
Yeah. And it's cool because this industry is in a unique position to be able to provide those revenue opportunities because we have the promo, we can have like the actual, we can have the branding, have the swag to match. So I think that's really cool that that's how it came to be. And then you kind of touched on it, but talk to me a little bit more about the Water4Good and how that initiative came to be.
Yeah, a couple different ways. And that's kind of about the time Scott got heavily involved as well. We as an organization, we're trying to figure out, what we're good at, what we can be doing. And, we do have these 4 pillars of responsible sourcing, environmental responsibility, diversity, equity and inclusion, and philanthropy and corporate citizenship. And tied more to the philanthropy side of things, we did a fundraiser. The very first one we did was for NAMI, an organization involved in mental health awareness. And we did a fundraising campaign. In my day-to-day life, I work with suppliers as part of my job. And so we leaned into a lot of our suppliers that wanted to get involved and offer up a piece of promo that had a give back component that raised money for this particular organization. And it went really well. Next year, we wound up doing a fundraiser for Ukraine when the war started in Ukraine. And then the third time we decided to do something like this and had kind of cut our teeth, so to speak, in those first 2 fundraisers. Scott had been doing a bunch of work with Planet Water, and that kind of led us into this whole Water4Good campaign.
Yeah, and so that's where this was an initiative where we elevated from an action team here at PromoCares that was so responsive and so amazing from an organizational standpoint, management of time standpoint, and impact to recipients or stakeholders from all the good being done from the prior two campaigns. And then we started talking about, okay, next, what's going next? And we talked about the industry, the impact of the industry, manufacturing in the industry, sourcing in the industry. And so many of us as suppliers, distributors as well, but all the way through the supply chain, we're pulling resources out of certain regions or communities. We talked about, the benefits of putting back into the communities that this industry draws from. And so we brought the topic of clean water, which it's clean in the sense that it's not debatable. It's not political. You can't debate whether somebody or a human has the right to clean water. And so it just started to make some sense. And then our team at PromoCares, our board, we started to activate and we started to contact different, owners, leaders, partners, principals of organizations in the industry, and we started to receive an amazing response. And I think the traction, the commitment, and participation from so many in the industry has really elevated the capabilities of what we can do as an entity. So,
yeah, I really like what you just said about how everybody, like, water is just a fact. Having access to clean water is a fact. And I know you guys have this on your website, but share a little bit about like the clean water, like the ripple effect that it has. It's not just adding this drinking water there. There's a lot other things, a lot more impact that comes along with it.
Yeah, I'll jump, David, in just on this.
Sure. Oh, go ahead.
But it's the impacts are so reciprocal down the line, like you said, and it really starts from one. When you delve into the impact studies that have been done by Planet Water deeply into this, is that you have people in communities, in villages, or wherever they're at. Mostly it's women that are having to trek different distances each day to obtain some form of water or clean water, get back. You talk about health, you talk about hygiene, you talk about the impact that on children, their attendance in school because of that. It just goes on and on. But along with this, to your point, getting the clean water, there's all this study you can do about it, but education. And one of the biggest things that happens along this journey of doing a deployment into a disadvantaged school or community is, yes, getting them and bringing them the clean water, but there has to be buy-in from the governance of the community or the city or the school. There has to be this longer term play, and that includes the education that occurs. And then it teaches children and the community about the benefits and impact of health and hygiene.
Yeah, and you probably saw some of the stats on the website. It's, something like 2 billion people on the planet don't have access to safe drinking water. More than double that, nearly half the world's population don't have access to just water for personal hygiene and stuff. And so this is happening all over the world, and Planet Water in particular has, focused in some specific areas around the planet that we focused on. And a lot of them, incidentally, are in areas where the supply chain in our industry is affected. They have factories, they have families that work at those factories that are in that area and impacted by this. So it was just a perfect fit in terms of industry and cause.
And just on that topic real quick, Nicole, is that we've even gotten, we have had general managers, owners of factories in different countries around the world where we're manufacturing, QC teams, other key people within the supply chain that have come to help to volunteer and deploy this and get involved. So, and now what we may get to at some point is we'll talk about, we've taken it to an end user level where end users now that's building into presentation. It's the whole thing from the start to finish.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's awesome. Actually, I'd love for you to touch on that a bit more too, Scott. That's really cool.
Yeah, so this the execution and reach out from our PromoCares board to all of our ambassadors that help to support PromoCares initiatives, to the actual ones writing the checks, which are hats off to CJ Smith and so many other. I don't mean to only pull him, but there's so many that have contributed. And what we've done, so we've done that part. Now we have distributors that are getting heavily involved as well. And that involves, even in 2 or 3 short weeks, we're helping to facilitate with an organization, Reciprocity Road. which is a Danny Rosen and a Denise and so many great people that are going down to Mexico City for an annual conference. They made an agreement, they've made the initiative to actually deploy a tower there while they're there. And we're going down to help support that. I know some of your team at PPI is coming down, is super excited about that. But it goes to where we're working on presentations with distributor customers and agencies that include the amortized cost of what it would take to build a tower for a backpack, let's say. So the backpack is made with sustainable and recycled materials. It's all embellished and private labeled. It's gorgeous. And then there's a beautiful card from the CEO of the end user that actually calls out that the purpose of this bag is, one, as a recognition gift to every employee, but also we have 1,200 people in India on our team, and so this bag is also standing for a tower that we now are going to build in India near where we're, and that's an end user, right? So that has jumped onto the cause, purpose, and the value that's brought to their employees. And then you think about talent recognition, all the things that does, right? All the way through and through. So.
Yeah, that's
just
awesome.
To kind of simplify, because I know a lot of people are probably watching saying, well, I don't get it. How do I get involved in the Water for Good? And if you start at the very top, what we did was partner with suppliers. So the supplier that makes this piece of drinkware says, I will donate 2% of sales for the next 3 months of the campaign for that SKU or these 3 SKUs. Or in the case of HIT, they said any drinkware piece, like all drinkware pieces. And so that's how the suppliers have gotten involved. Then, between what you guys are doing on the Sage platform, allowing people to search by things, search for products that have give back, through the collections we create on Common SKU, through a number of different initiatives in the industry, distributors can find these groups of products out there. There's a catalog out there from Zoom Catalog that has all of the products in this particular campaign. So a distributor now can take these products, show them to their customers and say, look, here's this piece of drinkware, but if you buy this one, you're giving back to this campaign that's building these water towers in these affected areas. And then that trickles all the way down to the end users that way. So super easy to get involved, whether you're a supplier or a distributor, or to sell it to your customers as well.
God, you're good. Thank you for cleaning up my mess in my house.
I could tell, Scott, you were excited about what was coming out of David's mouth there. That was great.
I get going.
Yeah, but I think what's really cool about that too is when you're talking about the end user is then that also helps them become advocates as well, and that's furthering the cause. It's not just stopping with our industry; it's really going beyond, and that touches, who knows how many people that participate in these products. So that's really awesome, the impact that it has. And on that, I'd love to hear you guys talk about, the first year of this initiative did really well. So I'd like for you guys to brag on yourselves a little bit, talk about that, and then go into what you're looking for this year, because this year it's time to level up.
It is. Yes. What was our goal year 1, Scott?
I don't even know that we had a legit goal.
I don't think we did.
We saw the funds running in to give butter, and then we're like, we need to set a goal. Let's reach, let's stretch. And every time that we've reached and stretched, we're obtaining our goals. And so I think we're to a point now where I think we're in total over 170,000, and I think our goal is just over 200,000. God, I should have read Kate Nash's amazing organized notes before this. And I think from a percentage standpoint, we're about 20% away. Next week, we have a big blitz going on in the industry where all the PromoCares assets are board. We're really going to reach out and push heavy and hard to finish this year as strong as possible. So be ready, because there will be more coming about our PromoCares Planet Water Blitz Water for Good campaign next week.
Yeah, and it's to kind of quantify that a bit. These towers are still around $25,000 a piece for an installation, Scott.
Yeah, just under that. That's for the full assessment of the location. It's for the tower itself and everything else that comes around with it. So yeah, but it's just under that, David.
Right. So it's if we hit our $200,000 goal this year, we're going to be putting in upwards of 10 towers around the world. With some of those having gone up earlier this spring. There was one I was involved in. Scott and I were involved in one last year down in Mexico. So they're going up all over the place at the moment because of this initiative.
Yeah, and to give you a little bit of a understanding in terms of like the amount of impact it brings, it basically is a full filtration system. You're not digging wells. It just simply needs, this tower needs access to some water source, some poor water source. Once it starts to fill the bin and it's going through the filtration process and coming out of those beautiful stainless steel spigots and bins, it basically produces about 1,000 liters of clean water an hour. And
Wow.
if they're sustainable, these towers are sustainable without any electricity, solar, anything at all for up to about, typically they'll say about 5 years, but we have our towers, we started in 2018, 19, and then going forward that are still operational. And if you look at the formula exponentially, these towers alone are just over 30 million liters of clean water they produce for these communities. The
Wow.
PromoCares towers and the amount of them with everybody, I don't know what those numbers are in front of us, but it's exponential. It's amazing how much and how quick it produces clean water.
That's incredible. Honestly, you guys had some of those numbers on your site that I knew, but I didn't recognize the breadth of the impact, and that's amazing. I also would love to, David and I spoke a little bit before this podcast, and you teased it, but I want to hear the story. I have a two-part question for you guys. First part is, speaking from the promo community itself, if you guys have any stories of like participation or donations or anything like that that really stuck out to you guys in this initiative. And then the part two is going to be, since I know that you guys have been on the ground there on these projects, just stories about what you guys have seen when you're actually there seeing these towers get implemented.
Yeah, and I think that's where you lock people in, right? And they want to come back over and over and over. Of the various boards and charities I'm involved with, we are boots on the ground in these. And so it's not just about donating money or writing a check. Like the one we did this past spring was in Vietnam, and this particular one was funded wholly by HIT Promotional Products, and they sent over their senior team, including CJ, their CEO, their COO, and I convinced my president of my company to follow along. So spent 24 hours on an airplane flying over to Vietnam, and then another 4 hours in a van traveling out to this tiny village outside of Hanoi, Vietnam. And it just, when you pull up in that van and you get out of the van, there's all these little kids like waving. See, it gets you emotional just talking about it. All these little kids there that have never had access to clean water, and they're all lined up going into the school. They're holding flags. They put on an entire presentation of local dances for us. And then the scary part, made us do the dances with them.
So we need
There is
videos. The videos will be
moves.
added to this episode. Just kidding.
There's some video of that, yes. And then you spend the afternoon, the really impactful part is you spend the afternoon in the classroom with a teacher from Planet Water who's, native speaker of the local language, and teaching these kids how to wash their hands and about germs and why this is important. And the kids make these drawings of germs and hang them around their neck, and they have to catch you, as if they're trying to infect you. And then we wound up going to he was the security guard for the school, but he lived kind of in a farmhouse a little ways down the road, took us to his house, and he and his wife cooked us lunch, and it's just an amazing experience. And then, there's actually the part of putting this together. I'm a pretty hands-on guy. Like, I have a lot of tools around the house and do a lot of my own repairs and maintenance, but most of the folks on these trips are not that way. And so it is, they do it in a way that anybody can be involved in these. And by the end of the day, you have this tower that there's water running through it. They have this handover celebration with all the kids getting these cups and drinking clean water. And it's a really impactful experience. And I did it once with Scott in Mexico, and I was like, okay, next time one comes up, let me know. And so when somebody mentioned Vietnam, I said, I'm in. So I don't know where the next one will be for me yet, but keeping my eye out for where those are going to be located.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. I will say this, that to David's point, like CJ and HIT, like being they've been such a big donor partner. That's probably why we're utilizing his recognition so much. But it starts at the top in any organization, right? If the top believes and has passion behind it, that's where we see the greatest participation, whether the supply side or the distributor side or even the end user side. But I would also say that the inclusive nature and experience locally within those communities, and to David's point about the children and the dean of the school, the mentor, all these, the coming together is so holistic. It's so real in terms of what you're there to do and why. And it brings everybody to almost a common ground. And that part of the experience, so you can have a CJ there, you can have a Dave or Scott there, you can have anybody there from your team. And that is, it's unparalleled in terms of what it is, and it's because it's never about you. It's about what you're bringing to the table, right? So yeah.
Yeah, there's really nothing like giving back to people, and then especially when you get to go see it, that getting out of your day to day, that really just kind of reminds you of what is important. And I'm sure for you guys too, being on the ground, just like reinforcing how much of a privilege it is that we have access to our clean water. I'm looking around our studio and our water bottles and things that we just are able to grab very easily. That it's easy to take for granted when you're living in it day to day. So that's awesome that you guys kind of get to see the other side of it. I understand why you get emotional, David. I am a weeper myself. I would totally be in your shoes if I were to have been on one of those trips. So that's really awesome. And it's important work that you guys are doing. And I will say to the listeners, I have, again, done my research on PromoCares and Water4Good, but this is my first time really getting to hear about it. So I'm equally as invested and intrigued, and I think it's awesome what you guys are doing.
It sounds like you're primed for one of the next builds then.
Yeah.
Rock and roll. Let's go.
You let me know. I love that. Okay, well, you guys touched on it earlier, but I want to give it its own section because it's important to talk about how can everybody get involved? What are the different ways?
So just something real quick I'll touch on in regards to that is that you can get involved not just with the Water4Good campaign, we can talk about that, but also just simply getting involved in consciousness and social purpose execution and work, your own individual for good, something that you're connected to that can, receive some level of attention in the same way or light. We're using right now Water4Good as our driving force of what our strategies and what we're focused on. That's going to evolve. That's going to continue to evolve into maybe some other purpose or other areas. But I think the getting involved, to your question earlier, is incredibly important, and that's something that PromoCares is set up to be able to help and guide and give direction or support in terms of an infrastructure and process flow of how to set these kind of campaigns up. Right now, we get into the Water4Good campaign, specifically how to get involved, and Dave has a great answer for you.
If you go to the PromoCares website, promocares.org, there's a link on there for the Water4Good campaign, and that'll lead you to a page that says if you're a supplier, here's how you get involved. If you're a distributor, here's how you get involved. If you're just somebody that wants to support it, if you're my dad out there watching this podcast, which occasionally happens when I do these things, he can head over to that website, and there is a link to buy a really cool t-shirt that says clean water is a human right. And 100% of the proceeds of that t-shirt also go to this campaign. So there's different levels of getting involved depending on whether you're a supplier or distributor or somebody's parent that's watching this podcast and wants to help out.
Hi, Mom. Hi, Dad. Okay, well, that was all I had for you guys. Is there anything else that you guys want to share or get across before we wrap up our episode today?
Well, I would just say thanks to your team for kind of giving this campaign awareness, and also, the technical infrastructure. You guys made changes to the actual platform itself back in the day when we approached you and said it would be great if people could be able to search by products that have a give back component, sustainably sourced materials, all that kind of stuff. So appreciate all the support you guys have given.
Absolutely. Giving us this platform, it helps bring consciousness, it helps to bring awareness and involvement, participation, and hopefully can change individuals and then ultimately groups, companies going forward, because our children are watching, and it's important for them to see us lead by example and for the right reasons. Yep.
Totally agree. Well, I know I speak for myself, but also for Sage in saying that we're happy to work with you guys and to amplify this message as much as we can.
Thank you, Nicole, very much.
Awesome. Well, I don't see any questions that came through in the chat, but thank you both for joining us today. And for our listeners, remember promocares.org is where you can find more information. Our recap emails and follow-up marketing, we'll have links out to your guys' resources as well so that people can reference after this. Thank you so much again for joining, and I'll talk to you guys next time.
Thanks, Nicole. Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.